It's been basically 4 years since Genshin Impact release, and the main character has been traveling with us ever since. Now, the special thing about the main traveler is that she has the ability to get multiple elements, in which at this point we've already gotten quite a few. Now, this time around we finally have Pyro Traveler being introduced. It did take a while because everyone had to wait until patch 5.3, which is basically the final part of the Archon quest, but overall, as long as she's here, that's all good. Right, well, that's the whole point of today's video, looking through the skill and kits of Pyro Traveler and see what kind of potential she actually has. Because, you know, Genshin Impact has had technically a notorious tendency to design a very bad Traveler in some of the past region. Well, the only thing I remember was going to be a Dendro MC, which is rather nice. The other Traveler didn't really have that much of a potential. If you really want to force using them, I think they can still do kind of fine, but obviously looking to a standard of a 5-star as well as the main character, not to mention some of the other main characters in some of the games are really good. I know that many of us has been a bit disappointed, so who knows, maybe Pyro Traveler is gonna be slightly better. I think overall, whenever you look at it, the kit is actually very simple as well. The normal attack is still pretty much that. The scaling is still there. What changes is going to be the E skill and the elemental burst. Now, the E skill has two options. To put it simply, whenever you cast your E skill, most of the time what it's going to be doing is to help you get a number of off-field damage off. Now, the tab options, from what I'm seeing, it does have the ability to activate a lot faster, but from the look of it, the scaling is rather low. Therefore, many of the time we're probably going to be holding the E skill instead, because it does have high scaling, and so the hold is going to be activated coordinatingly towards your active character, most likely doing the normal attack to triggering it. Now, the sad part is that this effect only occurs once every 3 seconds, which is rather slow if you want him to actually have pyro applications. So most of the time, compared to some other character, you're probably just going to have him there doing the damage with his E skill. And then his elemental burst is pretty simple, right? It's just one big chunk of elemental burst damage, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing much to it. Like, as you can see, Hoyoverse demonstrates PMC in the Hoyo Lab website, and they only had like basically 2 pages of skill explanation, so it's not really that impressive, I would say. Now, the first passive allows his E skill AoE to be slightly larger whenever you have more than 20 night cell points, and then the second passive helps PMC to regenerate energy, which is kinda nice because his elemental burst does requires a decent amount of energy if you want to have burst every rotation. So that's basically his skill and kit. Now let's have a look into Constellation, because that's important. So Traveler has the ability to get all the way to C6. Now C1 is okay. I think it's kind of weird because it allows your active character to get 6% damage increase, and then whenever the character is within Night Soul Blessing state, they will deal an extra 9% damage increase, overall a 15% damage increase to the maximum. It does apply to Natlin DPS character, but other than that, if you're not Natlin DPS character, then you're only getting a 6% increase, which is, you know, kind of weird. So I think it's more toward buffing PMC if you're having him as the on-field character. C2 allows the Traveler to get Night Soul point regeneration, so it helps the uptime of his E skill to last longer. I think it's only up to a 12-second maximum of uptime, so either way you're still going to be having a 6-second cooldown of his E skill. C3 allows E skill talent level to increase by 3. C4 is going to be a 20% pyro damage bonus after he used his elemental burst, which is kinda nice. C5 is burst talent increase, and then C6 I think is overall one of the better constellation, especially if you want to have a DPS PMC. So basically now PMC's normal attack is going to be converted into Pyro, which cannot be overridden, with an extra crit damage increase of 40%. So looking at this, if you're wanting a DPS PMC, PMC, C6 is technically going to be a requirement, which I think is going to take you a bit of a time to actually collect everything for a C6, but overall, you know, it's a free-to-play character at the end of the day. It does require you a bit of time investment. So looking into it, what kind of potential I see PMC is here. Now, I just have to give it straight, is that his kits is not really interesting. It's kind of like a copy and paste of some other character that we've got in the game. Now, one of the things that he may be able to do is to have an off-build pyro application for your team, including a bit of sub DPS. But yeah, at this point in time, we've already got other pyro character that have good pyro applications. I don't think I have to mention Xiangling. And if you think more about it, then Thoma is also one of the better pyro applicator out there, with his elemental burst being able to trigger once every second, while Pyro Traveler E skill triggers once every 3 seconds if you're in the holding mode. So who knows, if you want to have better pyro application, you might want to opt for, you know, the tap option with faster triggering time. However, you're trading it off with less damage. But either way, I think that PMC is still going to have no more internal cooldown, so that's something we might also have to take into consideration. But now, obviously, the sad part is that there's already Xiangling. If you're looking for the meta, the only probable way I'm going to be saying that he's got potential is when you really like the main traveler and you want to use him as an on-field DPS, because if you look into that, it's actually pretty decent, and there are ways for him to probably make it and do good numbers, because his kit does support that in terms of, you know, his constellations actually helps him to increase his damage by a pretty decent amount. And I've heard that some have been saying that he can potentially be better than a D-Look and a Klee at a C0 level. So yeah, that kind of reflective in terms of him being a 5-star character. So obviously, when looking into his specific build options, the artifacts wise, I think there's technically only 2 options that you want to opt for. The first one is going to be Obsidian Codex, really powerful set because of how much of the extra crit rate that he has, not to mention the C6 capability allows him to get more 40% crit damage. Very easy to build PMC around in terms of a DPS character. Now, if you want to have him as a sub DPS character, then obviously the Cinder City set is going to be the way to go. Nevertheless, regardless of which artifact sets you're going to be going with him, I still think it's going to be best if you opt for artifact stats as if you're building him as a DPS character. So which means that it's going to be attack stance, pyro damage goblet, and a crit damage most likely. Other than that, it's going to be crit rate if you're using the Cinder City set. Now, do keep in mind that his elemental burst energy requirement is 70, which is on the higher end. However, the good thing is that he has the passive talent too that helps him with energy regen a little bit, though it's still something that you want to keep in mind. Therefore, if you're still feeling that you're lacking in energy regen, a Favonius sword given to him is, I think, kinda okay, considering that at C4, after you use your elemental burst, he does have that 40% pyro damage increase, which is rather nice. Other than that, if you don't want to, then I think most of the other sword DPS weapon that you have on your account is going to be absolutely fine. I'm pretty sure you have some decent free-to-play sword options, because especially you've just got a pretty good sword in the recent event of patch 5.2. Which leads us into some of the possible team comp sections for PMC at this point in time. I think, again, the most probable team for PMC usually is going to be a DPS team for him, because I don't think most would like to use him as the off-field pyro applicator for your team when you already got Xiangling, right? So characters such as, you know, Shilonen, Rina, you know, Bennett, Kazuha, those kind of characters are really valuable to be on a PMC team. It's basically as if he's a Mavuika at home, right? You've got Mavuika being absolutely god tier of a pyro DPS character, when PMC Holyverse is trying to give PMC kind of like a copycat, where he tried to be another DPS character with a bit of sub DPS capability, but none that has the ability to, you know, buff your character or anything kind of that with good pyro applications. So other than that, if you want to use PMC in an overload team, you know, like Bennett, Charus, and Fischl, yeah, overload, I think that's kind of fine. Yeah, Bersian hasn't really been really good of a team comp. If you want to force it, Farina, Nahida, and Bennett, if you really want to go with that route, but I don't think that's going to be a very good Bersian team. And new character, you know, such as Lali, Shilolan, Bennett team for a PMC, I think overall that's kind of fine as well. So yeah, those are some of the team comps or character supportive that you can consider whenever you're being on a PMC teams. Now for sub DPS, I mean, you can try to be a sub DPS on most of the team you want to, but again, that's that question of Xiangling, which whatever you want to play around, you can maybe have both, like, you know, PMC, Xiangling, Shilonin, and Sitlali, or other DPS character in Sitlali plays, right? Like, you know, New Vlad, who knows if you want to mess around with it, but of course, it's not really optimal, as at that point, you don't know exactly who will be the one to trigger the reaction, which is pretty hectic. So overall, PMC Kit has potential in terms of DPS side, at the very least, better than Hydro MC, of course, so that's good news. The bad news is, if you're comparing the MC in Genshin Impact to what other main characters in other games, we don't really have to look too far, and that is Honkai's Daryl. That's not even on the same page. So it's weird how Genshin Impact devs still won't pay attention on providing an interesting kit for the main traveler, as most of which is just a reused idea of other characters. I would say that's really how I see it. So if you're a fan of wanting to use PMC, I guess his damage won't potentially disappoint you, which is kind of nice. So I guess that's all I have to say regarding PMC at this point in time. I hope the video have helped you out. If you have any other discussion or question regarding the PMC, feel free to leave it down in the comment section, as I or some other lovely Genshin player would love to get to you there. Guys, 5.3 is going to be a really important patch in terms of banner. I'm still on the fence of which character to choose in terms of pooling. I have a really in-depth video going through that, so be sure to check out the video right here. I really appreciate you guys staying with me to this part of the video, guys, and with that, I wish you a super day, and I'll catch you on my next video.